everyone. Hello, and welcome back to the Designer's Den. On this week's episode, I am super excited to have on Alan Tucker. I've had the pleasure of working with Alan on a couple of projects, and anyone who watched the show knows that Alan is typically hanging around, asking a lot of great questions and making a couple of snide comments here and there. But I think that's what chat's supposed to do. But anyways, I'll let Alan give him a little introduction about himself because I'm sure that you're going to do it better than I could.
Oh, I don't know about that. As you said, I'm Alan Tucker. I've done a number of products on the DM's Guild and a few now in Drive-Thru RPG since I think I started in 2017, September-ish, somewhere in there. Um, Before that, I wrote several novels, science fiction and fantasy as well, and played D&D back when dinosaurs walked the earth and kind of quit for a while because life got in the way, and got back into it a few years ago and haven't looked back.
And dinosaurs roam the earth, so that's about the same time
Hmm.
Greg Marks played.
Probably, yeah.
Yeah. Well, so one of your most recent projects that we're going to chat a little bit about here at the beginning, and one that I'm sure most of you have probably seen promoted fairly heavily in the Twitterverse, anyways, if you're on there, is
Probably too
Incredible.
heavily.
Yeah. Uh, yeah. It is Incredible Creatures, and this is your Kickstarter project. And it is, well, it's not just your project. It is indeed a lot of people. Um,
A lot of people.
yeah. Uh, but Incredible Creatures is at its core, um, pretty much this is the short description on the cover of it, art-inspired monsters for 5th edition. And that's different than how some people traditionally come up with monsters in that we build a stat block and then we envision what it looks like. But in this case, you had, I was going to say conscripted, you had invited a bunch of artists.
Some probably consider themselves conscripted, but
Invited a bunch of artists to create monster artwork, and then you brought on a team of incredibly talented designers to look at that artwork and stat it out. Which some people may have a little bit of familiarity with this concept because it's actually kind of what James Introcaso did with my dad's monster manual, in that he showed his dad all the pictures and his dad was like, well, that does this.
Mhm.
So we're doing a much bigger version of that, except this time from the creative minds of a bunch of people who have done some monster design. Like, I know you've got some people on here like Joe Rasso, who has done some kind of wicked creatures.
Mhm.
Yeah, and yourself, of course. So
Yeah.
what really inspired you to put together this project and to make it so big in scope?
Well, I don't tend to do anything small, even though I sometimes intend to start out that way with being small, but
I
I don't usually don't end up doing it that way.
I think that's how the
But I
last project I worked with you ended up. We're just gonna write a little demon waste supplement.
Yeah, and then it ended up being about 120 pages. But um, yeah, well, I did the one I did actually before that was for the Mornland,
Hmm.
and which it was we did a lot of kind of a big gazetteer about the Mornland and what was in there, just kind of describing a lot of those points on the map, and taking some more that already existed from third and fourth editions, but then expounding on that.
Hmm.
But really, a lot of that book was a monster book. We had, I think, about 40 or 42 creatures in there that were all original. And for that, I had gone through and found a bunch of basically a bunch of stock art
Hmm.
I hadn't really ever seen in other places used, and I gave it to the writers at that time and said, here's something, make it something that would fit in the Moorlands.
Well, the good thing
And
about the Mournlands, though, is you can take pretty much anything and come up with a justification for why it fits in the Mournlands.
yeah, and that seemed to work really well. The writers liked having the image to start with,
Mm-hmm.
and after I got done with Demon Waste book, I had this idea that, well, let's, the monster thing really seems to be good. People always like monster books,
Mm-hmm.
and I thought, well, let's expound on that idea of taking art first and let some artists just go wild and say, here, make a monster.
Right.
This is not directed from, well, normally the writer, the artists are asked, well, what do you want, and how's this thing look, and okay, and then I'll draw based on that. But what I wanted for them to do was just to have absolute free reign, create anything that came to their mind, and then we took the writers, and there's actually four writers per image
Mm-hmm.
because we're
For
having.
each of the tiers.
Right, we have one for each tier of play, and so you get some different perspectives too on how a designer or writer will interpret that image and create something from it. And so I think it's really been a lot of fun, I think, to see the different takes that people come up with on stuff. So
Yeah, and I got to, see some of the art and do one monster, and I am super excited to see the other three versions of it. Um,
I
be-
actually wrote one of those for that
oh,
image today.
now I'm even more excited to see the other three versions of it. Uh, because I think I approached it kind of with a rather whimsical take on the little, I don't know, octopus looking fellow.
Mhm.
And I know that other people looking at it are going to go a little bit more on the grotesque side. Um, and like, it'll kind of be like the two flip sides of the coin there. So I'm very interested to
Mhm.
see like how many monsters kind of end up with this. Well, it's a monster, but that doesn't mean it's monstrous,
Right.
right? Um, which is actually kind of a duality that's been fascinating me lately, as I tend to be more on the whimsical, lighthearted stuff, and then my partner, my other half, is more on the wow, this is gross and it's going to murder me side. Is that a good summary? It's not necessarily going to murder you, but you're going to wish it murdered you.
Sure. Yeah.
So yeah, Alan Patrick, uh, and it doesn't always have worms. Okay, apparently that's a disclaimer that I need to start telling people. But yeah, so we have a lot of you know amazing artwork in this product. And how many pages has this one ended up at?
Well, I've got a lot of the layout done, except for this last batch of monsters that,
Mm-hmm.
that the Kickstarter extended. But anyway, we're already over 200 pages. We're probably going to be around 250
Okay.
by the time it's all finished. So it's going to be a pretty beefy book.
So I'm trying to offhand remember how many pages the Tome of Beast was. Uh,
Oh, it's huge. I think it's over 400, something like that.
yeah. Uh,
I don't know how they do that. I mean, their production budgets must be huge.
well, they have an army of kobolds.
They do.
And that's the whole secret right there. It is, uh, well, according to Amazon, it's 400 pages. According to the summary on Amazon, it's 400 plus pages. So somewhere between 400 and 500.
Yep,
But yeah, but that's Kobold Press, and Kobold Press is probably one of the largest third-party publishers out there for fifth edition stuff. And so just
definitely. Yeah.
just just thinking, that like, I mean, you're not a publishing house.
No.
You're just you, uh, Alan Tucker, whose Twitter I definitely typed in incorrectly, so I'm fixing that right now. So I'm just staring at it. underneath your
Oh,
name.
I hadn't even noticed.
I didn't either, except I was like, Alan Tucker, Tucker Allen. Um, so, you know, at least I put your actual name and stuff. When I had Fenway on, I had her listed entirely somewhere else, and I felt so bad. Uh, but yeah, so you're not a studio, and I mean, you're just a guy out here. This isn't your full time job either.
Well, it kind of is now. I'm pretty well. We had a roller coaster 2020.
Mm-hmm.
My stepdad passed away suddenly, and my mother and I decided to uh, pick up from Montana and move to Colorado, closer to be closer to my kids.
Mm-hmm.
And so she and I are living together now. She just had a knee replacement surgery this
Oh,
week too, so we're having all kinds of fun. But at any rate, so I'm pretty much doing taking care of her and doing this
okay.
full time at
So
this point.
you've kind of gone into retirement and come out of it now into the world of tabletop RPGs, which is actually kind of kind of becoming a popular option for people of retirement age. I'm not there yet, or I can't quit my job and do this yet. Give me a couple of years. Um, but yeah, so well, it is your full time job, or well, you're as much time as you want to devote to a job. Um, but like, yeah, it's not the thing that you go out there and you set and you devote 40 hours a week to still, and yet it's impressive that you've managed to put together um, this product. The Kickstarter, you organized the Kickstarter, you did all the project management for this,
Mhm.
and
Yeah.
you I mean, if you look at the credits on just the sampler of it, it's a team of 30 plus people at least. And
Yeah,
so
we're probably closer to 50 now, with new artists and new writers both have come on board since that was put out. So
as anybody who's managed a project knows, that is a full-time job. um you're herding the cats,
Mhm.
and then after you've herded three or four, you go herd the first two that wandered off, and you got over 417 backers who pledged just shy of $12,000 for this book. So,
Mhm.
um, I mean, that's an accomplishment. And is
Thank
this?
you.
Yeah. Well, of course, congratulations. You deserve it. Um, and this isn't your first Kickstarter, but it's definitely your
Yes.
largest. Um,
Yeah, well, it the project itself was my first. I did launch it prematurely and then took it down and put it back up once I realized a little more what I needed to do as far as promotion and things like that. Um,
and honestly, um, that's not a discouraging thing to hear. Actually, I think it's probably encouraging to new creators who want to reach out onto Kickstarter to realize that, like, putting it up and then realizing that you need to pull it down and reassess the scope. Um,
mhm.
it's common. I've been
Yeah.
on two now that went to Kickstarter and didn't fund for one reason or another. Poor timing, launching a Kickstarter right when the pandemic started. Just nobody knew.
Yeah.
Um, or similar, or otherwise, launched something right when a very large company announced a very similar product.
Mhm.
Also, these things happen. And so, what would you say? Just diving a little bit into the Kickstarter now, what would you say is probably the biggest lesson you've learned?
Um, really getting the promotion stuff set up ahead of time. Like I said, I hadn't done it before, and so
Mm-hmm.
I clicked on the prepare to launch or something like whatever it's called button, And then all of a sudden, bloop, there we are, we're launched. And I thought, oh no, what have I done? And
The
uh,
slightly misleadingly labeled button.
yeah, it really was. Plus, I had already there's a place earlier where you say you want to schedule it to launch on this date,
Mm-hmm.
whatever. I assumed that that was,
You know,
the date that it was going to launch, but that had absolutely nothing to do with anything. So anyway, long story short, I decided, well, okay, let's run with it and see how we do. We um, we got, oh, I don't know, probably a third of the goal, and I had the goal set higher at that point,
mm-hmm.
um, for the first run, and I just thought, yeah, you know what, we might still make it, but let's take it down, reassess, and get some more ducks in a row before we do this again.
And obviously that was a decision that went well for you. I know while the Kickstarter was running, I saw someone either promoting it or posting that they just backed it on Kickstarter at least a dozen times a day.
Well, hopefully that didn't get too annoying. So I certainly got tired of promoting it myself, but and I'm sure people
No,
got tired of hearing about
it did not get annoying. As a matter of fact, like I believe I retweeted it a dozen or so times myself after I was like saw it for like the 30th time and was like, okay, fine, I'll go to Kickstarter and see what Alan's got going on.
it.
Went to Kickstarter and was like, okay, I'm in. And then of course, spent I don't know, about a week and a half, however long I could keep it in my mind, telling people I just got this amazing thing. Um, that's about how any good Kickstarter works. Some
Yeah.
people can remember longer, but like I didn't have a giant post-it note for my ADHD brain to remind me to keep telling people. And eventually, um, the Kickstarter ended, and I wasn't constantly getting bombarded. So, but it has done well, and you are into the final stages of the layout, as you said, and you'll be printing it and shipping it before you know it, and then you'll be on to your next
Yep,
project. Uh,
that's the idea.
yeah. So, do you have another project already planned?
I do. I have something that I'm working on now. It's actually going to be a setting.
Okay.
Um, and I've got, once again, I keep adding on and biting off more than I can chew by myself, but I'm going to try to keep the scope of extra people down farther on this and do more of the writing myself. But it's um, it's going to be kind of a science fantasy type of thing. Um,
Well, that makes sense with your background for your fiction writing is more in science fiction and speculative fiction.
Well, and yeah, I did fantasy as well, but yeah, I like the science fantasy stuff, and this setting is going to be well, it's called Eye of Everywhere,
Okay.
and it is basically well, something that Wizards has done, but hasn't really addressed as much as some people would like. But the idea of sigil, where this is a portal to everywhere.
Planescape,
And
but not definitely not Planescape because that's
right, yeah. So anyway, but there's a giant portal, with a city surrounding it, um, that is just a complete amalgam of science fiction. I mean, you might find spaceships there, or you might find galleons, uh, things like that, and one you might find a high-rise skyscraper right next to a stone built in and tavern, things like that, within the city. So that's kind of the idea. I'll have several races to create for this one. I've already done as a robot, basically intelligent robot race, and I'm creating a psionic system for
that
this as well. And yeah,
That
So
can be that can you are definitely taking on a lot, as you've already admitted to yourself. Step one, admitting to yourself.
no, I'm well aware of what I do, and I do it every time. So
I I don't do that. Let's not pull up my spreadsheets full of my project plans and prove me a liar. Mom, if you're listening, don't you pipe up right now either. She's an enabler and has also been a cause of Project Scope. As was just gonna write one little adventure based on the antics of her character, and now we're writing a quest book and a yeah, mom, and a magic item book, and I've commissioned a lot of artwork, and these things happen. But yeah,
as you do.
yeah. So you know, you're doing a whole setting, and you're gonna have NPCs, and you're gonna have new subclasses and classes and powers and people. And where do you start with all of that?
Really, well, with this at least, it was just the concept, wanting to do a kind of a all-encompassing place that you could set into any campaign, literally any campaign. That if you wanted to, maybe you're in Forgotten Realms or your homebrew world, and you and your players are kind of getting tired of the same old thing all the time.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, here you can. This is a launch pad to anything and everywhere, and you can use it as a kind of an ongoing thing yourself, or just use it as a stepping stone to get to somewhere else. And again, I've already written, I think, three subclasses for it as well, and there's probably a dozen different factions of that are in the city itself that surround this portal, and they each have. If you're a member of that faction, you get benefits
Mm-hmm.
for your character because of that, etc. So
And are they? You don't have to give away too much stuff if you don't want to, but are they kind of like warring factions trying to control the portal, or is it more of a the portal is kind of open to everyone and they each have their own interests?
the portal itself is controlled by a group, and there are lots of um, factions. All of the factions are kind of either intertwined or doing this
Oh,
with each other within the city. So um, yeah, there's hopefully a lot of
I
potential conflict, and I've got uh, the start of a whole list of rumors and things like that of people that hear about what stuff's going on between this faction and that faction and
I think that
that
sort
type
of
of thing.
robust world building where like you already have people invested, you join a faction, whatnot, you already have that investment on like, okay, so these are our enemies and these are our allies. So I already have like,
Mhm.
a way to go whether I want to be vindictive or helpful, whatever my, or the new Spelljammer's gonna be Tesla. I'm gonna guess no. I'm gonna guess Alan's not running Tesla into his world. But
Probably not.
self self driving spacefaring ships. That's a thing in the future, science fantasy. So, I mean, is Tesla even Tesla, or is Tesla something else?
Well, you could certainly go to a universe through the portal and find a Tesla if that's what you wanted to do.
Yeah, but then you found your way to Earth, and nobody wants to be here.
Mhm.
Um, so in general, though, so when you're setting out and say you're writing an adventure, so a lot of people have like a design philosophy that they kind of stick to and a way that they start out. Like some people start with, I have this specific encounter that I've came up with in my mind, and now I'm going to build a story around it, or I have this NPC, or even in some cases, I couldn't sleep because I thought of this really cool magic item, and now I need to write a whole adventure to put this magic item in it. Or, I mean, I've been learning more and more ways that people kind of start more recently, like themes, or my last guest was music, like actual like rock and roll songs and stuff as
Mm.
inspiration. So like, what's your go-to source of inspiration? Do you start with encounter? Or do you start with a place? Do you start with a person?
Um, Generally, there's two things I feel like are most important. One, uh, when I get a story idea, whether I'm writing a novel or writing an adventure or something else, I kind of think of the ending first.
Okay, so you work
So I,
backwards.
yeah, and then the other aspect is characters.
Mm-hmm.
So if you can if you can come up with a either a compelling kind of final scene, whatever it happens to be, that you're really excited about and want to deal with, or a compelling adversary, then and if you can do both, then you should be pretty good. But one or the other generally is where I'm going to start when I'm doing an adventure or something like that. And it's important for your adversaries to have goals.
Right. I mean, while you can just drop bad guys in for the sake of being bad, that leads to a generally a rather flat encounter. Like,
Right.
why do they want to kidnap me?
Hmm.
Like, why do they care about the treasure? Like, if you don't have those answers, then it definitely is a rather one-dimensional thing. There's no depth to it. No like reason to for your characters to care, your players to care. Um,
Right. And if that adversary has specific goals in mind, even if the players kind of get off the rails and go someplace, then you as the DM, okay, well, they may be doing this, but my my adversary, my villain in this piece has specific things that they are working on, and this is happening regardless of what the players are doing.
mhm.
So then at that point, you come in, even though the players, maybe they're playing around in the magic shop trying to buy an item, but all of a sudden, oh well, this is going to happen because the adversary has continued on with their goals and what they're doing. Then you can kind of bring things back to the storyline if you can.
Yeah, so you kind of have a timeline for your in character adversaries, your in character whatever, and it's progressing. And if the players don't interact with it, like you've got to plan. This is what's going to happen. Bad thing is going to happen if we let them get there.
Yeah,
And I think that's an excellent way to do that is like because it provides that not only motivation but like that sense of urgency. Like
right.
if we don't go and stop the doomsday clock, guess what's gonna happen?
Right.
Doomsday.
And yeah, and it helps with your world building too, even within an adventure, because it feels like the place is alive, where because things are happening behind the scenes that don't have anything to do with what the characters are doing,
Mm-hmm.
with player characters. So once the players realize that and see it, they say, "Oh, maybe we should engage with this and try to do something about it."
Why have we been dilly dallying around in the shopkeeper trying to haggle her down to 2 gold for this potion? We could have just given her the 20 and been gone.
Yeah,
It really begins to set the players' priorities in order.
yeah,
Well, hopefully begins to set the players' priorities in order.
yeah.
You can't predict the players, no matter what you want to do.
No,
Um,
absolutely not.
I mean, I suppose you would definitely, say that your background as a novel writer, a fiction writer, has probably greatly influenced the way that you approach adventure design because you're
Mhm.
used to having multiple narratives and plot lines kind of interweaving. Because, um, I mean, much like an adventure, a novel's not going to be very good if we've got the one storyline.
Yeah, and it's I guess I mean, with a novel, you have a lot to work with, but adventure writing in one respect is very different because of the
Yes.
short form that it is, and it's also collaborative. Where if you're writing a novel, you say, okay, this is where the story is going to go, and that's where I'm going to take it.
Hmm.
But that can often change drastically when you get other people involved that are helping to tell that story.
Hmm. And the biggest diff I started out in fiction writing as well, and it's a rough transition. The biggest difference, at least like I don't want to say genre wise between the two, but I can't think of the other term. But writing a mystery in a novel versus trying to write a mystery in an adventure. Um, I've said this before, and I'll say it again to my viewers and my potential creators out there. Maybe don't write a mystery for your first adventure if you've never done.
Mysteries are tough to pull off in an adventure setting for sure.
Yep,
Um,
my first one, I was
yeah,
ambitious, and I was like, "It's gonna do a mystery." Uh,
especially if the players are higher level,
for
or the characters
yeah,
are, and they've got access to divination magic and all kinds of other crazy shenanigans that they can just say, "Oh, well, I'm just going to cast this spell, and that'll tell us the answer immediately." And so you have a 2-hour adventure boiled down to 10 minutes.
and that's true. That's why in a higher level mystery, um, you have to make it difficult for them to know what question to ask, even as far as
Mm,
divination goes. Like I know, the Dreams of the Wed Wizards plot line has some mystery there, and that's the one I participated in was tier 3, and the new one's going to be tier 2, so a little less divination magic. But like that was a definite consideration. Like, what if we have a divination wizard in the party?
mm.
Let me pull up all the divination spells and see what I can do here to prevent this from happening. Um, and yeah, that's a thing. Like, uh, as an adventure designer, as a tabletop RPG designer at all, like these are things that you have to take into consideration. That when you're writing a novel, when you're writing a novel, you get to decide if the other character knows divination.
Hmm.
And they probably know just enough divination to keep the plotline interesting. In that case, but you've got a 14th level wizard, and if he remembers that he knows how to scry,
Yep. Or
uh,
you've got a cleric that can just ask their god, "Hey,
the good thing
what's
about
going on
that
with this?"
is deities can be fickle. You ask your deity, "Hey, I want to know this." I mean, sure, you want to know this, but like, why should I tell you? What have you done lately for me? Says the says Lathander, bro. Lathander, in my head canon, Lathander is the most bro of all the deities.
Mm.
Um, if we want any evidence, anybody go back to Lathander pitching a fit about his girlfriend Tyche disappearing and trying to put two goddesses back together. Um, but yeah, so I mean, there's a lot of things to take into consideration, and uh, that really affects like the way that you approach design for each of the tiers. Like as you say, writing an adventure for a party of level 1 characters is going to be much more straightforward.
Mhm.
You do, of course, at that point have to also consider the possibility that the level of party 1 characters you're writing for has never played a tabletop RPG.
Right.
that
Yeah.
is that is that is indeed probably the thing that you should assume, um, because you want your low level adventures to be accessible for new players. And then, you know, as you scale that up, like what other things would you take into consideration?
Well, you never know as players progress or characters progress. You never know what kind of magic items they might have that you have to deal with. You never know what classes might. I mean, some table might have an entire party full of rogues
Yeah,
that's running through an adventure, and so you have to try to deal with as many possibilities as you can.
and that's
And then,
that's doubly true. Like if you're writing something in an organized play setting where every
mhm,
single group running through it is going to be different and unpredictable. Like if you're writing for your home campaign, you have a little bit of foresight and control over, like, if I don't want them to have this magic weapon, well, maybe I don't present it as an opportunity.
Yeah, for sure. And you also have a lot better knowledge of what those characters are capable of in being able to handle in a
Yeah.
combat encounter.
And their motivations and the things that they tend to care about.
Mm,
And that's the thing too, like, coming from people who start into this not having written fiction or whatever, but having created their content for their home group for years, and then want to branch out into producing stuff for the broad public. Like, I think that's a good point to consider, is like, you got to write for every possibility, which is impossible.
right. But you cover as many of those bases as you can.
Mm-hmm. um you in addition to adventure design, though, which is arguably the closest to novel writing, you also do a lot of mechanics stuff. So monster creation, NPC creation. You've even dipped your toe into some magic items and obviously settings. Setting work, though, is still also a lot of narrative design.
Hmm.
Um, Also mechanical, though, because the setting does interact with people, um, generally.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think of a setting that doesn't interact with people. I can't really think of one.
It's kind
But
of a poor setting if it doesn't really.
like, I would probably instantly forget it and never go back to it if I encountered one. But yeah. So as you leave those more narrative things and move into more mechanical based stuff like monsters, magic items, NPCs, and stuff, you kind of have to shift your design philosophy a little bit. Would you agree?
Somewhat, although I mean, obviously lately I've been writing a lot of monsters, but even with those, there's still a story to tell.
Yes. Why is the
And
monster in your universe?
right, and what does it do and what are its motivations too?
Hmm.
Because if it doesn't really have those, it's not a very interesting monster. The DM flipping through your book is going to say, oh, well, that's okay. It's another bag of hit points that hits hard, that type of thing. But if there's an interesting if there's an
Troll.
interesting bit of lore or different mechanic to it or anything like that, that's a little bit different. You want those intrigue, the
Hmm.
DM to say, oh, wow, that looks fun. Let me throw that at my players and see what they do.
Yeah, certainly, especially like when it comes to writing spellcasters. It influences, like, what spells do you give them? Where did they
Mm,
come from? And therefore, what would they know? Like, what faction are they with?
right.
Um, and probably also what language do they speak, so that like, who knows what spells they're casting. Like, all of these are things to take into consideration, and they affect the story, they affect the narrative. You can't just drop, um, Boblin the Goblin in wherever. That may be the one exception.
Yeah.
He finds his way into a lot of stories. Um, you know, there's a goblin at the bar. Also, oh, we want to talk to him. Okay. Uh, yeah. Um, yeah, and exactly. If you're gonna create a monster, make it as great as you can imagine. It's a good point. From my mom, and then Luciferinus says that I've created monsters that were created the day that a god was feeling drunk and ate a legendary burrito. And I can imagine that that creature would be, a good deal different from one that was created on the day the god was feeling like, we just gotta populate this realm.
Mhm.
Um,
Go forth and multiply.
I can't even imagine what kind of creature when the god was drunk and had eaten a legendary burrito. I'm gonna need further explanation on that, Luciferus. Yeah,
I
what's
actually have one in Incredible Creatures that I wrote that's that's basically just a a fleshy chaos creature that is um, it. I've got all kinds of strange mechanics in there where each round it changes in size from anywhere from small to gargantuan, and has different.
Better hope you're not in an enclosed space with it.
Yeah. And it's just like I said, it's a fleshy agent of chaos. And I even wrote, as you do, I wrote it as a warlock patron as well. So I did a
It's an agent of chaos, naturally. Uh,
yeah,
that's what we've decided. Warlock patrons are agents of chaos. Um, Wizards are nerds who want to spend all their time in the school, and sorcerers just want to do magic.
yeah,
That's why we're sorcerers. In case everyone wasn't aware, pre-show, Alan and I decided of the spellcasters we would be sorcerers because studying seems like a lot of work, and then like making a promise to someone to get my magic,
yeah,
overrated. Um, yeah. So, I mean, obviously, it would be kind of um, difficult to ask you right now, like what your favorite monster would be, because I'm sure right now you have a bunch of favorite monsters.
yeah. It's like asking me to choose between my children, and I can't do that, at least not legally.
At least not where they can hear you.
Yeah, right.
Um, but if you had a type of monster, so like the monstrosity, fiend, fae, and whatnot, that you created more of, is there one that you lean towards more?
That's a good question. Probably either monstrosities or aberrations, I would guess.
I have a fondness for monstrosities because you can um really just let your daydreams go wild there. Uh,
Hmm.
why is it like it is? Experiment gone horribly wrong.
Hmm.
Why is it like it is? It really angered the gods. you know,
Yeah.
um, yeah. Let's see. A monster that grows in proportion to your thoughts, either good or evil. Uh, that's a good one too, and that one would definitely kind of play into a setting where not necessarily alignment played a big part, but like uh one where the gods were more of a influence in the day-to-day life, like Theros. Um
Hmm.
you have your monsters there, and if they were growing in relation to how much you were aligned with your god or not, like I that would be a mess.
Yeah, could be for sure.
We've got a kraken. It's just a little kraken though. Why did you say that? Now you've upset Thassa. Uh, that would definitely be an interesting mechanic too, to have like as related to, chaos, things that change based on uh other things in the environment. Your deities, your weather, a monster that was different depending on the weather. That would be the druid's ultimate friend or foe, not really sure. Um
Could be either.
yeah. Well, it depends on what kind of druid it is, I suppose.
Hmm.
Um, Yeah. Okay, so an interesting question then from Joe Rasso. Were there monster types that you wish you had more of in your Kickstarter?
Um, well, I was the one I was writing today. I made as an ooze, and that was something I realized that we did not have, excuse me, in the book. So I wanted to make sure I included one. So this one, yeah, this is an ooze. It's a little CR 1/8, I think it ended up as, but uh, it seeps into dolls or toys, other things like that, and it protects children, but it really does not like adults.
Okay, that could be terrifying then, because you don't even expect it because there's just a doll.
Hmm.
Um, which then brings perfect justification to all of the adults who have a fear of dolls.
Hmm.
Um, did you have a lot of monster types in the Kickstarter that were more, I guess, no, I don't want to say normal, but things that player characters could use. A lot of beast creatures, or was it primarily, um, you know, everything except beast?
There is everything. I would say more than likely monstrosities is probably the most. I'd have to go through and look, but um,
You don't have a pivot chart handy?
I don't yet. That's one of the last things I'll do is I'll make the CR list and by creature type and
Okay,
environment and all that stuff.
okay.
We'll have those at the end of the book too, but
The data analysis has not yet occurred, so
it's
okay.
not complete yet.
Okay. I thought we were gonna have to be upset for a moment. Data analysis is an important part of any project. We gotta have spreadsheets. Um, yeah, and so your next is gonna be a setting. You've just done monsters. Do you plan to cover the rest of the bases then going forward? You got to get some stuff to populate your settings, some interesting magic items, some I don't know, an encounter book.
Well, I've done some of those actually, and collaborated with people on those. That was one of the after I started out writing, I did some single adventures, and then a few months later, after meeting some of the people virtually through the guild, um, we did a collection of encounters called "So a Cleric and a Vampire Walk into a Tavern," and they're basically kind of one-page encounters
Mm-hmm.
that you can throw in anywhere, and we did it as a freebie. And I think last time I looked, it's been downloaded over 45,000 times, something like
Ooh,
that. It's got a zillion reviews. I don't know. It's been really well received,
what's your
and
secret to
we did
getting
it.
reviews?
Yeah, um, but it was a lot of fun, and that was kind of what got me onto the collaboration
Mm-hmm.
uh, train as well. But again, we just did it as a freebie to say here, that way if you and everybody got links to their stuff in there, and
Okay.
so if you see an encounter you really like and say, well, that's really cool, I want to see some more stuff from this author, then that's the idea, at least. Whether it's actually worked or not, who knows. But they
It's
were all encounters based in a tavern, so
right.
I mean, your players end up in a tavern at some point during your campaign. It's going to happen, and then you have a little random encounter you can throw in there if you want to. So,
At some point, some quest somewhere in the campaign begins with everyone at the tavern. So,
mm,
um, perfect time to pick up that supplement and throw in one of the encounters then. But yeah, no, you said you had a lot of reviews on that. Is that something that you solicited reviews on, or is it just something that people just put reviews on without any, I don't know.
oh, it's yeah. I mean, obviously, most of them are just there. I just get the little notifications from drive-through saying there's a new rating of type of thing,
Mm-hmm.
or a new review, and that's
And
I
yeah, I think that's an important, I guess, area that hasn't been really addressed in like how to get reviews, because reviews are important. I know, like, I definitely hear people say, I read a review on this and it said it was great, so I bought it and I played it for my friends, and then I left a review and then they bought it. And honestly, it's probably one of the best forms of advertising. And um,
absolutely.
if anybody knows the trick, the secret to getting people to actually write reviews, um, well, you're invited on the show.
We would all want to hear from you if
Yeah,
you're out
you
there
could be
for
on
sure.
my show. Jeff Stevens will have you on his show. I'm sure we can get you on, maybe even on the Today Show. I don't know, no promises. You'd make a lot of money. But
Definitely.
yeah, but yeah. So your what was your first? So was that the first thing you published on the DM Guild? Was or that was on Drive Through RPG?
That's it. No, it's on the guild.
Okay.
It was like I said, I did. Um, I got back into playing D&D after kind of being an empty nester there in
Mm-hmm.
2000, summer of 2017. I was looking around and thought, well, let's try this again and see. And it kind of turned out. I mean, I completely skipped through third and fourth edition, came into fifth, and it actually plays a lot like basic and second
Like
did,
yeah,
only
like
only
second.
less.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, only less complicated. You don't have THACO to deal with anymore and things like that.
Explaining
But
that to someone who's only played fifth edition and just watching their face go, "Why would you do it like that?"
yeah, exactly. We even at the time we even thought, why are they doing it like this? Oh well, we'll just figure it out, and there you go.
It's
But
a
um,
holdover from wargaming, and it's fine. We got away from it eventually.
yeah, so I started playing in a West Marches campaign at my friendly local game shop, and that quickly turned into me DMing several of those groups. And
Mm-hmm.
so as I was doing that and creating those adventures, about the same time I happened to find the DMs Guild, and I thought, well, heck, I can do this. And so I put some of those adventures that I wrote up there over the first couple of months.
Yep.
And like I said, just kind of got into the Facebook groups and things like that, and found all these amazing people.
And then it
And
was, I'd say downhill from there, but I guess it's more uphill, really. Once you get involved in the community, though, it really just envelops you and folds you in, and you can't help but make more stuff.
yeah, yeah, and it's wonderful because by and large, it is one of the most supportive groups
Hmm.
that I've ever encountered.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Everybody's happy for everybody else's success, and um,
Well,
if something, yeah, they're always willing to help it, jump in and advise or offer help or anything like that when
or
something comes up. So
tell you if an idea that you just came up with sounds exactly like something that already exists. I've definitely got those friends who have like an encyclopedic knowledge. I'm like, okay, I had an idea. Let me know if it's actually my idea or if it's
yeah,
something I've read and I've just remembered reading it.
there's very few original ideas out there, but you can come up with a new take on an idea. That
Yeah, I find that oftentimes though, like my brain will dredge up things that I read like 4 or 5 years ago and be like, great idea. Then I'm gonna like write down the exact premise, and someone's like, did you play this? And I'm like, oh shit, yeah, you're right. That's what this is. Okay, let me tweak it a little bit
yeah,
so it's something different. But yeah, like I said, you started publishing on the DMs Guild in September of 2017. First adventure, Still Waters. You got 31 products up now. Second adventure, more interestingly titled, in my opinion, Tentacles. Why did it have to be tentacles?
yeah,
And it just kind of, yeah, grew from there. And now you're doing all kinds of stuff. You're working with all kinds of people. You're in a lot of the groups. Um, you're I know were on the Facebook group, the circle before that
mm,
dissolved, and you know it is definitely an amazing community to be part of. Do you have any closing thoughts, words of encouragement, advice, or caution that you want to share with anybody interested in getting started as a creator?
uh, well, don't expect your first, second, or even third products to be metal sellers, regardless of the level. I
Eventually,
think
you'll get there.
that's yeah, and then I think that's a common thing that people have. They think they see this now. Oh, I've got this amazing idea. I'm going to do this, and they may come up with a wonderful product, but it uh, more often than not is not going to set the world on fire sales wise. So
Mhm.
just temper your expectations for that. But I for me, I just love the collaborative process, and that's why I kind of gravitated towards bringing more and more people in on things, just because I love getting different perspectives on stuff.
Mhm.
And I'm the same way in my play groups as well. I love having a hugely diverse group to play with,
Mhm.
and because it just, I don't know. I guess the old cliche is it helps keep me young, but I enjoy
Eh,
getting those different perspectives from people and thinking, oh man, that's a
yeah,
great way to think about
keeps you
this.
young, broadens your mind, introduces you to concepts and topics that you might not have known, which
Yep.
I mean, and you're doing the same for them, which only, improves all of us. It just brings us all up together. And I think that's excellent advice, especially the temper your expectations. Uh, your first product might be the best thing ever, but it's not going to be the best thing ever when you initially publish it.
Yeah.
You're going to learn how to fix your layout, how to fix your marketing, how to fix your even small things like your font choice. I've seen some that like it's like, man, I like this, but this hurts my eyes. Very few and far between. Most people stick with a nice, safe, like Times New Romans or something. So but yeah, I think that's excellent advice, and especially all of your words about joining the community, being part of the community, and learning from it. Just want to thank you again so much for joining me here today. Um, it's been great talking to you, and I'm looking forward to your upcoming project once you finish with the scope creep and getting it out there.
Yep. Looking at, or we're still hoping for June, sometime in June, to be published on Incredible Creatures.
Okay.
That'll be available on drive through.
Yeah, I will be awaiting my coupon to print it and ship it to myself. Um, and so, everybody, you'll know when I get it, because I'll be talking about it again. But yeah, do you have anything upcoming that you want to promote, talk about that's definitely on the horizon except for that, or just tell everybody where to find you online to work with you, or maybe even play a game with you?
Yeah, well, best places to find me on Twitter, probably at Tucker Author. I've got a website that's alantucker.net, and you can contact me from either one of those places. And as far as upcoming stuff, I know I'm trying to think of what I can talk about when I can't. There,
You're working on Redacted.
yeah,
That's a great project.
one that's going to be coming out, I know fairly soon, is going to be called Perks and Pains. Ryan Longer is heading that up, and there's a few of us that worked on that, and it's basically a character generation. You can choose between in taking some different. I wouldn't. They're traits basically, not feats, but that along that sort of realm that you can take. There's positive and negative ones that you can kind of take to balance things out, just to make your character more interesting to begin with. And then there's another project that I think you worked on as well. That's going to be, I believe, coming to Kickstarter soon, with some NPCs and character classes, that type of thing. So
Yeah, yeah, with some great people on that one too. I'm like, I've done a lot of stuff. Which one?
yeah,
This after you get involved in the community and you start creating things, this is what it becomes. You're like, I turned something over sometime in the last 8 months. So what project are we doing?
yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Well, excited to see all of those. Definitely excited for people to see that second project. Got a lot of good people on it, and I really liked your entry.
Oh,
Really
thanks.
fun. Um, uh, my mine was of course had a whimsical twist on it. um,
Yeah,
but
well,
yeah,
I liked yours as well. I didn't get to read all of them, but the ones I saw were, there was some good stuff in there for sure.
I need to go back and read the rest of them because like as people were starting to turn them in, I had another big project ramping up, and I'm like, I'll come back to this.
Hmm.
But yeah, again, thank you so much for being on today. I have a very full calendar of guests upcoming. I've got Allison Wang, who will be on next week. Sadie Lowry, Josh Simmons, Steve Pankotai, Kat Evans, Latia Jaquise, Stephen Garcia, Chris Bissett, and someone is supposed to be on my show on June 27th that I recently talked to, and I was in the middle of doing something, and you said you were going to send me your email address, and I don't know who you were. So, if that was you, send me your email address like you said you were going to. Space on the calendar still. Um, uh, yeah, that was June 27th. Just making sure that I didn't just say the wrong date. But yeah, so a lot of exciting stuff upcoming. You can find me here every Sunday at 4 p.m. Central talking to all those amazing people. I've got a project. I've got an artwork commission for it now. And my mom's been writing away on it, so hoping to have that out by end of the year. End of the year. Um, Surprise, Mom. I know I didn't tell you a date yet. um,
Now you have a deadline.
she's she's fine. She works just like me. As soon as you give me a date, okay, fuck, deadline is here. Yeah. And as always, you can also find some other amazing shows on this channel, like Jeff Stevens on a non-standard Monday night of Jeff's Choice, with amazing guests from the industry talking about issues that are relevant to creators and consumers alike. The monthly Baldman HQ show, which is the Sunday evening the week after each virtual weekend, and the new Herald's Guild office hour, where we talk about ways to be a better DM and be a better part of the community. And by we, I mean everyone who's not me talks about that. And that is the Monday immediately following each virtual weekend. And I'm sure I'll be adding more shows to the rotation, so stay tuned for that. But in the meantime, that's going to be it for this episode of the Designer's Den. And thank you again, Alan, for being on the show. All
Thanks
right.
for having me. It was a pleasure.
Yeah. All righty, everyone. Well, till next time. Bye.